Hey, welcome back to Mr. Mig's Classroom. I'm Mr. Mig, and today what I want to do is go over some practice questions for the FAA Part 107 drone exam. So if you've been watching some of my videos, I do apologize for this one being a little late. I am a teacher and I'm on summer break, so I took a few weeks off, but I'm going to be back to posting videos again. So let's get right to it and go ahead and share my screen. So let's go ahead and share this. And cool. All right, so you should be able to see my screen here, and I'm gonna get right to it. So I'm just gonna go, I did a part one of this. This is gonna be part two. And I'm just gonna go through some test questions. If you have questions about the questions, then just go ahead and put those in the comments below, and yeah, we'll just rock and roll and get through these. Let's see, yeah, right here is where I wanna start. This is an alcohol question. You will get some alcohol questions on there potentially. Again, everybody gets kind of a different test or gets different questions, but I'll go through what I think is most likely to be seen. So let me start with this one here. So the law requires that at least 8 hours between drinking alcohol and piloting an unmanned aircraft. So you have to wait 8 hours after your last drink. Otherwise, you're in violation of the FAA rules. You also have to be below 0.04 in blood alcohol content. So if for some reason you waited 8 hours and you were still above 0.04, you still can't fly a drone. So you got to be below 0.04 in blood alcohol content and 8 hours since your last drink. Included in the list of the waivable sections of Part 107 is, okay, this is one of those questions where if you see an answer where it says all of the above or both, a lot of times that's the question, or that's the correct answer. So here it's saying operations from a moving vehicle or aircraft or daylight operations. Both of those are waivable. A lot of things are waivable if you get the FAA's approval. But again, this is just one of those test question, like test IQ type things. Are you good at taking a test? And I just noticed with this test, they like to use the answer all of the above. I'm not saying that's always the case, but every time I've seen it in the practice questions, it's been the case. But in this one, definitely, if you get the FAA's approval, you can operate during night. If you get the FAA's approval, you can operate from a moving vehicle. Specifically, the FAA allows you to operate from a moving vehicle if you're in a sparsely populated area. So like say you're in a desert, maybe you're shooting a movie and there's nobody else around, no population around except for the people who are part of the movie scene. In that case, you could be in an operating vehicle or in a moving vehicle operating a drone. Low level of turbulence can occur and icing can become hazardous in which type of fog? I'm going to do another video where we talk about all the different types of fog, but in this case, it's steam fog. So steam fog is the correct answer, where you can have low-level turbulence and icing can occur with steam fog. I'll get through all the different types of fog in a different video. I won't do that right now. The correct method of stating 4,500 feet MSL to air traffic control is 4,500 feet. Don't say 4,500 feet. Definitely don't say 4.5. They like to enunciate things because you're talking over a radio and they just want to make sure air traffic control hears you. So the correct answer here would be 4,500. What happens to the airspace at Class D airports when the air control tower closes? Okay, so this is one where I've seen a few incorrect answers on YouTube. The correct answer here is Class D changes to Class E or some combination of E and G during the hours when the Class D airspace, the Delta airspace, is closed. So the answer is not Class Golf. I've seen people put that down. That's not the class, the answer. The correct answer is Class Delta changes to Class Echo or Class Echo and Class Golf, but not just Class Golf. And I'll just so you know, I'm not talking out my behind. There's the correct answer there. Which basic flight maneuver increases the load factor on an airplane as compared to straight and level flight? So turning increases the load factor. Whoops, sorry, right there, turning. So turning increases the load factor, and load factor is just like that kind of like extra force on your plane and how much weight your plane needs to be able to support. So what speed it needs to be able to go to support that weight. So as you're turning, it means that the plane needs to go faster in order to stay at the same altitude. Flight Data Center NOTAMs are issued by the National Flight Data Center and contain regular information such as temporary flight restrictions. So that's what the NOTAMs do. NOTAMs tell you, hey, the president's in town, you can't fly here, or there's a flight show going on, you can't fly because of that flight show, or whatever temporary flight restrictions the FAA wants to put in place. That's what a NOTAM is. It's a notice to airmen. All right, next one. In addition to inspecting your SUAS, you should also be inspecting, again, here's another where A and B is both the answer, right? So normally when I see this, that's the answer. So you need to inspect both local weather conditions and local airspace and any flight restrictions, right? So both A and B are the correct answer here. Which thunderstorm life cycle stage is mostly characterized by downdrafts? Here, these are the 3 life cycle stages. Stage 1 is cumulus, and that's characterized by updrafts. Stage 2 is mature, and that has updrafts and downdrafts. And stage 3 is dissipating, and that's the correct answer here. That's mostly characterized by downdrafts. In stage 3, you're pretty much only seeing downdrafts, and that's as the storm starts to die out. Again, I'll do a weather one where I took a lot of, I'm going to get in-depth about weather, and it's probably going to be multiple parts because there's a lot to weather, but I'll talk about the 3 stages of thunderstorms and a bunch of other stuff. Most comprehensive information on a given airport is provided by, okay, so this one's a tricky one. This one's not so hard because it doesn't give you sectional charts, but this one a lot of my students get wrong. The most comprehensive information on a given airport is from the Chart Supplements US, or formerly Airport Facility Directory. The chart supplements is going to be specific information about a specific airport, where the sectional charts are telling you how to get from airport to airport. Notice to airmen are those temporary flight restrictions. Ceiling condition cloud base can be calculated from, so this one is the temperature and the dew point, right? So ceiling conditions, so where your cloud is, your cloud base can be calculated from temperature and dew point. Okay, so here I am going to do a separate video on this one as well. So identify the hazardous attitudes or characteristics a remote pilot displays while taking risks in order to impress others. So this one is macho or machismo. They might say either way. But there's 5 attitudes that the FAA wants you to be aware of that they consider hazardous, and one of those is macho. We'll get into, I'll do a video where I talk about all 5 of those. But just know that macho is like taking risk to impress others, and that's bad. According to the FAA, that's bad. The most critical conditions of launch performance are the result of some combination of high gross weight, altitude, temperature, and wind, right? So wind is going to be obviously a big factor here. So most critical conditions of launch performance are from weight, altitude, temperature, and wind. Here's another one of those hazardous attitudes. The basic drive for a pilot to demonstrate the right stuff can have an adverse effect on safety. Let's see, by generating tendencies that lead to practices that are dangerous, often illegal, and let's see, may lead to a mishap. So this one is like, again, just one of those hazardous attitudes, like, you know, trying to be Mr. Cool. So going with that machismo. Okay, this is an important one that I think a lot of people get wrong here. Density altitude is defined as, all right, so what I want you to understand with density altitude is high density altitude just simply means high altitude. Low density altitude means low altitude. So at higher altitudes, there's less density. So high density altitude actually is less dense. So this one, density altitude is defined as the pressure, altitude, and ambient temperature. So it's just talking about like what is the density of the air at that altitude. But don't get confused by that one. Just if you see high density altitude, just it's talking about high altitude. Low density altitude talking about low altitude. But the density altitude is defined as pressure, altitude, and ambient temperature. Where can pilots find traffic pattern information and restrictions such as noise abatements? So this is another one where we can look at our chart supplements, formerly the airport facility directory. So if it's specific to a specific airport, it's the chart supplements. So traffic patterns, noise abatements, that's going to be specific to a specific airport. I don't have this pulled up. I'll do another video where I just go over some airspace stuff. I've done a lot of that, so I'm going to skip that today. And I don't have the airman guide pulled up. Okay, so what may be used to assist compliance with being able to maintain situational awareness as a remote pilot in command? Okay, so this one, I think this one's, you know, this one can get tricky because there's another, yeah, all right. The next question is where they try to trick you. So basically you are not allowed to use binoculars to maintain line of sight with your drone. You're allowed to use binoculars, that's fine. But if you need them to be able to see your drone is too far away from you. But that's not what this question is asking you. This question is asking you what may be used to assist compliance with being able to maintain situational awareness. So it's fine to use the binoculars to maintain situational awareness, all right? And I think this one's tricky, especially when you see it alongside this one. I notice my students don't tend to get both of these right. They'll get one of these right. So the next one is, what may be used to assist compliance with the Part 107 SUAS see and avoid requirements? So this one, you cannot choose binoculars. If you need your binoculars to be able to see your drone and avoid obstacles, your drone is too far away from you. You need to be able to, you have to have line of sight. You can use glasses. If you wear glasses, that's fine, but you got to have line of sight with your regular vision, not with binoculars. So here the answer is remote PIC diligence. You can use your diligence, obviously, for see and avoid. That's why I don't really like this question. And I do think the FAA does this all day long and all night long. All they're doing is trying to trick you. And that's a huge part of this test, folks. You just got to be ready for the FAA's tricks and traps, because that's basically what this test is. There's a lot of tricks. I can't really tell you why remote PIC diligence is incorrect here. That one, I don't know. I mean, it's just basically wants you to know that, yeah, it's fine to use your binoculars for situation awareness, and it's fine to use binoculars, but if you need them to be able to see the drone, like this question, then your drone's too far away. I think that's really what they're trying to get from you. But it does seem a little tricky. I don't think there's anything wrong with using your diligence to maintain situational awareness. So I do think they do that sometimes. They put two correct answers in there, and I guess you just got to be aware of those. An increase in load factor will cause a fixed wing unmanned aircraft to, okay, this one is tricky for folks because it just seems a little unintuitive. So if you have increased load factor, this is another one where the FAA is totally tricking you here, and one of the wrong answers is still a correct answer. And so I just want you to be aware of that I guess there's a more correct answer here, and you just got to be aware and ready for these. All right, so if you have an increased load factor because of turns or because you got weight added to your drone or whatever it is, it is going to be more difficult to control your drone. When you have increased load factor, your drone is going to be more difficult to control. Again, whether that's because you're turning or whether that's because there's weight added to it. But that's not the correct answer here. The correct answer here is stall at higher speed. So let's think about this one for a second. And I might do a separate video just on load factors because this one is a bit confusing and I think it will help if I show the chart here. But basically what's happening is if you got a plane and it's able to maintain level flight at, say, 70 miles an hour. So at 70 miles an hour, it's fast enough to stay in the air, right? If you start taking a turn, then if 70 miles an hour is the absolute minimum to stay in the air, and anything below that is going to cause you to start falling. So if you're at 68 miles an hour, you start losing altitude and you start falling, right? If that's the case, then if at 70 miles an hour, that same plane starts to turn, well, it's going to start losing altitude, right? Because you're going to increase the load factor by making that turn. So if you're still at 70 and you start making the turn, you're going to lose altitude. Same with weight. So if you add weight to that same plane, now 70 miles an hour isn't going to be enough to keep you at altitude. You're going to start to stall, and stall means you're going to lose altitude. It doesn't mean you're going to just drop right out of the sky. You might start to slowly lose altitude. It depends on, what your stall speed is. But the point here is stall at a higher speed. And that's odd to people because they're like, wait, why would you stall at a higher speed? They're just taking it, for as the sentence is written. And it's like, at higher speeds, I should be less likely to stall because, I'm getting more lift. I shouldn't be more likely to stall. But the point is like, if your plane at, say, no weight, needs 70 miles an hour to fly, and then you add weight to it, then now 70 miles an hour is not going to be enough. Now it's going to start stalling at that speed. Now maybe it needs 80 miles an hour to be able to fly. So now it's stalling at maybe 75 miles an hour, whereas without that weight on it, it was fine at 75 miles an hour. That's what it means by stall at higher speeds. And I know that's kind of rough and dirty explanation here. I'm just trying to get through these questions. So I will do a future video where I'll talk about stall speeds, and that one might be a short one. Or load factors. I'll talk about load factors and all that stuff. I hit this one last time, so I'm not going to go through this one again. Which statement about longitude and latitude is true? Lines of longitude are parallel with the equator. Okay, so longitude, sorry, I definitely said that one wrong. Lines of longitude cross the equator at a right angle. So parallel would mean they're equal with the equator. So lines of latitude are parallel with the equator, right? Because lines of latitude run east and west. They measure north and south. Lines of longitude run north and south. They measure east and west. So those are going to create a right angle with the equator, meaning they're perpendicular with the equator. The lines of longitude are perpendicular with the equator because the equator is a line of latitude. Lines of latitude would be parallel with the equator. Let's see. Okay, when is pressure altitude equal to density altitude? So you got to memorize this one. Just write it on a flashcard and memorize it. This is just one of those things. So there's this thing called standard day they want you to know, and drones are typically built to fly in the standard day. I mean, where you live, that standard day might not be a standard day. I can tell you where I live in the summertime, 15 degrees Celsius is not the standard temperature even at night, but whatever. So the standard day for FAA or for taking this test is going to be 15 degrees Celsius and 29.92 Hg. That's talking about your pressure. So talking about the pressure of the atmosphere. So that's what drones are typically made for, is that kind of temperature and pressure standard day. So that's what that means. Just write it down on a flashcard and memorize it. And know that they're usually going to put this in Celsius. And this is just one of those things, I've talked about this before. You're going to have to go back and forth between the imperial system and the metric system. In temperature, they like to use Celsius. For feet or for distance, they like to use imperial. They use feet. or they'll use miles. Don't ask me why they like to go back and forth. They do. You got to be used to it. For weight, they like to use imperial. They'll use ounces and pounds. Yeah, don't ask me why they like to skip back and forth. You just got to know it. In this case, they're going to do it in metric. I won't even, I won't go through right now how to convert these. If you want another video, ask me in the comments below if you want me to do a video on how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. I have a nice, simple little trick to do if you're ever traveling abroad and you want to know how to get the Celsius temperature in your head without using like a calculator or something. Let's see. Let's do about 2 more. I want to cut this video not too long. There's thunderstorm activity in the vicinity of your flight area. Which hazardous atmospheric phenomenon should you watch out for? So in this case, it's going to be wind shear turbulence. So when you have thunderstorms, what can happen is you're going to get updrafts and downdrafts, especially during that mature stage of the thunderstorm. That's the most dangerous for aviation. So if you're just getting air that's horizontal, like wind that's horizontal, that's fine. The plane can adjust for that. But when you get those updrafts and downdrafts, those can be really dangerous, because if you got a plane and then you got downdrafts pushing you down, I mean, that's when you get the turbulence, and that's when you lose altitude, and that's when things can get really dangerous. You could get pushed into an object or pushed into the ground. So that's those wind shear turbulence is caused by those updrafts and downdrafts of the thunderstorm. And that's the hazardous atmospheric phenomenon you need to be aware of. Let's see. Which of the following operations would be regulated by 14 CFR 107, so the FAA? Let's see. Operations your SUAS operating your SUAS for imagery company. So it should be operating. Yeah, so operating your SUAS for an imagery company is something that's going to be regulated. So basically, if you want to just buy a DJI Mini and go out and fly it and take videos of yourself or pictures of yourself, and you're not selling it to anyone and you're not using it for work, you do not need this Part 107 license. You need this Part 107 license if you're going to do anything that's related to work, if you're getting compensated for it in any way. So I'm a high school teacher. I teach drone technology classes. I have to have my FAA Part 107 license because it's part of my job. I'm doing it for work purposes. If you're a YouTuber and you're YouTubing and you're using your videos from your drone for your YouTube and you make money off of that, you need to have the Part 107 license. If you're a real estate agent and you're doing this for your real estate, for selling houses, you need to have your Part 107 license. If a real estate agent hires you to take pictures of their houses, you need to have your Part 107 license. If you're selling paintings or pictures, sorry, not paintings, but if you're selling pictures that you took the pictures with your drone, you need to have your Part 107 license. Flying for enjoyment, you do not need it. Conducting public operations during a search mission, I guess it depends on your capacity. That one's a little tricky. Conducting public operations during a search mission. And if you're not getting paid for it, I guess not. But if it's part of your job, then actually I think you would, right? If you're like a lifeguard or something and you're searching somebody out in the water, then I guess you would. All right, let's go ahead and stop here. I don't want this video to get too long, so thank you for watching Mr. Mick's Classroom. Please like and subscribe to my videos. I really appreciate it. And throw in some comments if you have anything you want me to talk about, please put those in there. I'll definitely do some videos on them. Sorry for the little break I've had, but yeah, I'm going to get back to making videos. So I'll catch you all next time on Mr. Mick's Classroom Part 107 lessons. Take care.